Thank you for joining us. This is Marlo Blue, and you are listening to a very special edition of KPFT Local News. Joining me now is Kevin Koenig. You are from the, is it AmazonWatch.org?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you're here specifically to tell about a grave problem going on in the Amazon, and specifically the Amazon in Ecuador. Why don't you give us an overview of what is happening there in detail?
Sure. Yeah, the Ecuadorian Amazon is, as many people know, home to incredible rainforest. Has some of the highest rates of biodiversity, endemic species on the planet, and it's home to many indigenous nationalities that depend for their daily survival on the forest. And unfortunately, what's happening is there is a new oil auction that's occurring. The Ecuadorian government is planning to put up for bid 21 oil blocks. It's about 10 million acres, and these lands will go to foreign companies and give them the rights, in theory, to drill for oil. But because the state in Ecuador maintains the subsurface mineral rights, so a lot of the indigenous groups there, they have land title, but it's only from the ground up. So this new oil auction is occurring. It will occur up until May. There's companies here in Houston that right now, as we speak, are preparing bids. And that's why we're joined here with indigenous leaders who have come up here to confront the government, challenge them on these drilling plans, and inform companies, investors that these lands are not for sale.
And of course, you are here with two representatives of some of those indigenous people, and specifically here in Houston right now because there's a conference going on at NAP.
Sure, it's the U.S.'s largest oil conference. It's where a lot of industry gets together with investors, and then all the apparatus of the oil industry, the companies that are doing new exploration, pipeline companies, and this is where a lot of the deals get cut, and what we're seeing, and why the two indigenous leaders from Ecuador are here, is that the Ecuadorian government is negotiating behind the backs of these indigenous groups without their consent. These groups have been adamantly opposed to oil for years and years and years. And in Ecuador, there's a very long legacy of contamination and rights abuses that have gone hand in hand with oil extraction in Ecuador. In the northern part of Ecuador's Amazon, you have the toxic legacy of Chevron. Back in the 60s, that company was the first to go into Ecuador. They used outdated technology and created one of the largest environmental disasters on the planet. Spilled more than 18 million gallons of crude, 4 billion gallons of toxic waste. So major environmental disaster. People are still suffering from it. The area in the southern Ecuadorian Amazon where our guests are from is still pristine. There's no roads. It's intact forest. And so it's part of the Amazon that is still left. But if the government has its way, it will be up to the highest bidder.
Who's actually negotiating on the parts of the indigenous people? Do they have a voice in the negotiations at all?
Well, no, they don't. Basically, what the position of the indigenous groups is that they are not interested in negotiating their lands. Their position is no, and what they've come up here to express is that they want investors and companies to know that anybody who comes into their lands, into their territory, is going to have a very hard time pursuing drilling activities, and then it's a poor investment.
Let's at this point, let's go ahead and introduce the two representatives that we have here today. We have, of course, Jaime Vargas. He's the president of the Ashuar Nationality of Ecuador, and Narcisa Mashienta, a community leader from the Shuar Nationality of Ecuador. Thank you for joining us today.
Gracias por estar con nosotros hoy día.
Gracias. Yo soy presidente de la Nacionality Ashuar del Ecuador por esta oportunidad.
Thanks for this opportunity. Yes, I'm the president of the Ashuar people of Ecuador.
Tell me why you're doing this. Tell me about the problems in your land.
¿Se puede explicarnos por qué estás aquí? Explícanos el problema que ustedes están enfrentando en sus territorios y por qué han venido aquí a Houston.
El único objetivo de venir acá pues es con el único objetivo de venir a informar todos los problemas o las situaciones que está pasando en nuestro territorio sobre la implementación de las políticas públicas del gobierno nacional.
So we've come up here to inform the world and inform oil executives up here in the United States what is happening on our lands and the problematic public policies that the Ecuadorian government is trying to implement.
Entonces, en nuestro país, en el Ecuador, pues se ha implementado en nuestro territorio, especialmente en el territorio de 7 nacionalidades, pues el proyecto de 11ª ronda petrolera en el suroriente del Ecuador.
In our territory and in the southern Ecuadorian Amazon, there's 7 indigenous nationalities that will be affected by the government's plans to open up this new oil auction, which is called the 11th round.
Entonces este proyecto se implementa en un territorio de 3 millones de hectáreas, que es una selva tropical, una selva virgen que está libre de contaminación.
This 11th round is putting up for auction some 3 million hectares of virgin forest that to date there's no contamination, it's perfectly clean.
Y por eso es que para llegar a eso, el gobierno nacional tenía que consultar de acuerdo a la Constitución de la República del Ecuador y también respetando o acatando los derechos derechos humanos de los pueblos indígenas.
The Ecuadorian government had to consult us. We have to have a voice. They have to ask us before they sell our lands, and they need to respect our rights.
Supuestamente en cumplimiento de eso el gobierno implementó la consulta previa, libre e informada en el territorio donde va a ser afectado, pero no ha llegado a una consulta de acuerdo a los procesos legales como tal estipula en la ley y en los derechos humanos.
The government says it has carried out a consultation process, but they haven't done it in the proper way, in the way that respects our own constitution and respects indigenous and international rights.
Lamentablemente este proceso ha dividido a muchas organizaciones, a muchas familias indígenas en este territorio y pues no hemos llegado a un consentimiento total de los pueblos indígenas.
The Ecuadorian government, what they've done is they're trying to divide our communities, and they have not gained the consent from us to move forward with the round.
Lamentablemente este proceso de consulta se ha implementado a través de chantajes, de mentiras, de engaños, ha ingresado a las comunidades con regalos pequeños, con comida, entonces eso ha dividido mucho a las comunidades y a las organizaciones.
What the government has done is to come into our communities and try to divide us, try to buy us off, offer us gifts, provide some free food, and trying to divide and conquer us.
Y las 7 nacionalidades hemos rechazado este proceso de consulta y hemos dicho no a la explotación petrolera ya hace más de 50 años de vida que estamos defendiendo en el suroriente. Especialmente hemos rechazado totalmente la explotación y exploración petrolera en el suroriente.
Our response of the 7 nationalities has been to adamantly reject the drilling plans of the government. Since oil started in Ecuador over these last 50 years, we have repeatedly and adamantly opposed any drilling on our lands.
Mucha gente nos pregunta por qué no quieren, porque ya conocemos y sabemos qué es lo que ha pasado en nuestro país con esta empresa petrolera Texaco. Entonces, con esa experiencia hemos dicho totalmente no en nuestro territorio.
people ask us why don't you want oil on your lands? We've seen what happens with oil extraction. There's the example that we talked about in Ecuador of Texaco, now Chevron, who first went in. We've seen what happens, the contamination, and that's why we don't want oil on our lands.
Y por eso estamos aquí, pues, por lo que el gobierno nacional del Ecuador, pues, iba a ofertar esta 11ª ronda petrolera en el suroriente, y pues nosotros venimos para informar a los inversionistas para que se informen qué es lo que puede pasar en nuestro territorio.
And that's why we're here, because the Ecuadorian government is here promoting this oil round, and we want to come and inform investors and companies of what the reality is on the ground.
What would you say to those oil executives had you been allowed into the North American Prospect Expo Conference?
Que si hubieran dejado ustedes entrar ayer en el Expo, ¿qué era su mensaje? ¿Qué quisiera informar ahí adentro de la conferencia?
Si hubiésemos tenido esa oportunidad de ingresar, pues nuestro mensaje tenía que irse o tenía que lanzarse de informar, especialmente a los grandes inversionistas, decir de que nosotros no hemos aceptado, de que nosotros hemos rechazado totalmente la explotación petrolera y va a ser difícil, van a tener problemas si en caso de ingresar en nuestros territorios, porque nosotros no hemos sido consultados y no hemos pues aceptado esa consulta, y todo lo que dice el gobierno nacional totalmente estaba equivocado y íbamos a decir de que estaba prohibido el ingreso.
Our message, had we had the chance to be in there, we wanted to give the companies and the investors a clear message that our lands are not for sale, that we are rejecting this oil auction. There has not been a consultation, and even if there was, we're not interested in oil development on our lands.
Let's please talk to Narcisa for a bit. Bring her up to the microphone with me. A little closer.
Más cerca.
Yeah, you're gonna have to get close. There you go. Do you think that coming to the United States is going to make is going to affect your cause? Is this going to be helpful?
¿Piensas que su viaje aquí le va a apoyar su lucha en Ecuador? ¿El viaje sí han sido útil? ¿Le va a servir a apoyar a ustedes en su lucha?
Yo sí estoy sentido desde corazón que mi viaje no ha sido en vano, porque estamos aquí para luchar conjuntamente con los hermanos de aquí.
Yes, I feel in my heart, our trip, although we weren't admitted to the conference, has not been in vain. We've connected with many local groups and found many allies here.
And yeah, but that was going to be my next question, so that doesn't really help, does it? Do you feel that I want to ask about technology versus ritual or lifestyle, and I don't really know how to put that in.
Mm-hmm.
How is this affecting your lifestyle?
¿Cómo piensas que el petróleo podría afectar la vida de ustedes, su forma de vida como pueblo indígena?
¿Por qué decimos que nos va a afectar nuestras vidas? ¿Sabe qué? Vivimos en una selva virgen, libre de contaminación.
We live in a forest. We're free. We live in a forest with no contamination.
Y además somos madres, mamás.
We're mothers.
Somos dueñas de las tierras. Conocemos los días de la fertilidad.
We're the owners of this land. We know los dioses de ese land.
Sí.
Yeah. We know the spirits and the gods of these forests.
Entonces, ¿cómo nos afecta? Porque nos van a destruir nuestra libertad, va a haber cambios y no vamos a tener nuestro espacio para correr, para que nuestros niños corran sin problemas.
Oil extraction on our lands would bring great change. It would change our territory. It would change our way of life. We wouldn't be free anymore. Kids would not be able to run free in our territory.
La única cosa que me gustaría llegar al corazón de todas las mujeres a que esta lucha no es mía, sino para todos.
One thing that I do want to share and want to connect with the hearts of all the women out there is that this struggle is not just ours. It's a struggle, a collective struggle of all of ours.
Queremos vivir libre de la contaminación, queremos conservar nuestro bosque tal como nos dejaron nuestros abuelos, queremos vivir en paz.
We want to preserve our forest in the way that all of our ancestors have done over all these years. We want to live in peace.
Y es por eso estamos aquí, sin hacer problema a nadie, solamente dejando nuestros mensajes de protección a esta vida.
We've come here with, we want to leave a message about protection and how our message of protecting our forest. That's what we're asking for.
Y no queremos que haya enfermedades, queremos vivir tal como lo vivimos. Y les invito a todos ustedes que se unan a esta lucha, a esta causa, porque todos somos iguales.
And we come to, sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second. This is the good thing, lo bueno que no estamos en vivo.
Yeah.
No, es que perdí, el primer parte era que informar que quieren vivir como tal, como ya viven.
Ya vivimos.
Como nos dejaron nuestros abuelos.
Como nos dejaron nuestros abuelos.
Yeah.
Y
So we want to live as we have been living throughout all these years, and we're inviting people to join us in our struggle.
eso, y hemos conversado con los niños de Houston, en donde nos han dado el mensaje de decir, no tenemos espacio para jugar. Hay tanto humo al lado de nuestra casa. Eso es lo que no queremos para mis hijos. Eso es lo que yo no quiero y lo que todas las nacionalidades no queremos.
We've met with groups here in Houston that are affected, and what we've heard kids say that they don't feel free, that there's too much smoke, there's too much contamination outside. They're not free to be outside and play. And that's exactly what we don't want, what I don't want to see happen to our people and our lands.
And finally, what would you say had you been accepted into NACA for this conference? What would you tell these leaders?
Si tú estabas frente a frente adentro de la conferencia a los gerentes máximos, ¿qué tenías esa chance de decir? ¿Qué quisieras decir a ellos?
Yo quise, si tú tenías la oportunidad, quise decir a los grandes inversionistas que lo que nuestro estado ecuatoriano está ofertando mi tierra donde yo vivo, no vayas a mi territorio a destruir mi vida y tu vida.
If I had a chance to be face to face with these big investors and companies, I would say that the Ecuadorian government is putting our lands up for sale. And we don't want you to come here. We don't want you to destroy our lands and our lives.
Porque los pueblos indígenas como Ashuar y Shuar y otras nacionalidades no vamos a permitir.
Because the indigenous people, the Shuar, the Ashuar, other groups there, we're not going to let you come to our lands.
Y lo que dice el gobierno ecuatoriano no es verdad.
And what the Ecuadorian government is saying here is not true.
Wow. Well, I I wish you all the very best of luck. Could you tell us how we could contact some of these organizations that are working with you, such as Amazon Watch, Idle No More?
Sure. For Amazon Watch, you can go to www.amazonwatch.org. And then the other organizations, you can go to www.tarsandsblockade.org, www.idlenomore.ca. Those are some of the local groups that have been supporting the Ecuadorians while we've been here in Houston.
And people can go there and help donate or be a part of petitions to help move this cause along?
Sure, exactly. There's, on the Amazon Watch website, you can go on there and send, from the website, send a message, a letter to the President of Ecuador. And as well, the other groups, Idle No More, Tar Sands Blockade, they've been instrumental and wonderful allies here in Houston. And it's important to note that much of the oil that may come from Ecuador will come through Houston. Because some of it will go to California, but some of it comes into the Gulf and will end up here. And so that's a lot of the work that was done over the last couple of days, was also to connect with communities here in Houston that are dealing with the same type of contamination issues, environmental justice issues. So as what we have here is a great alliance between communities on the ground where they're taking the oil out, and then folks up here that bear the brunt of the refinery process here in Houston.
So you're taking the biodisaster tour, is that?
Yeah, so this afternoon they're going to head out and take a look at some of the areas where refining happens, talk to local communities, see how they're affected, because what you always hear is that in Ecuador the companies brag that there's they can do this kind of extraction with great technology, and and in the United States they always use state-of-the-art technology and there won't be any environmental damage. And what we've already heard from communities here is that it's the same old story. It's business as usual, where communities, marginalized communities that are dealing with the same kinds of things that we see in Ecuador: health impacts, rights abuses, and so basically we have there's a great coalition of communities affected by the oil industry that are coming together, and I think that's one of the reasons that here in Houston on Monday, with a big protest outside of where the Ecuadorian government was talking to investors, and then on Tuesday when they denied us entry into the conference, that's what has them scared. That communities that are affected by resource extraction are uniting, whether it's the tar sands in Canada, the Gulf, the Amazon. People are coming together, and that's the power of communities sharing strategies and stories.
I want to thank you all for coming. I really do appreciate you taking the time to come and do this with us. Again, my thanks to Jaime Vargas, to you, Narcisa Mashienta, and to you, Kevin Koenig, and I wish you all the best.
Great. Thank you. Gracias por estar.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Markete.
Markete, Mike.
Thank
You mean somewhere.
somewhere.
Markete is how you say thank you in Ashuar.
I like that.
Yeah, sure.
I like it. All right. You have no power.
Federal recognition?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been denied consistently.
challenge them on these drilling plans and inform companies, investors that these lands are not for sale.
And of course, you are here with two representatives of some of those indigenous people, and specifically here in Houston right now because there's a conference going on at NAP.
Sure, it's the U.S.'s largest oil conference. It's where a lot of industry gets together with investors, and then all the apparatus of the oil industry, the companies that are doing new exploration, pipeline companies, and this is where a lot of the deals get cut, and what we're seeing and why.
Thank you for joining us. This is Marlo Blue, and you are listening to a very special edition of KPFT Local News. Joining me now is Kevin Koenig. You are from is it AmazonWatch.org?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, you're here specifically to tell about a grave problem going on in the Amazon, and specifically the Amazon in Ecuador. Why don't you give us an overview of what is happening there in detail?
Sure. Yeah, the Ecuadorian Amazon is, as many people know, home to incredible rainforest. Has some of the highest rates of biodiversity, endemic species on the planet, and it's home to many indigenous nationalities that depend for their daily survival on the forest. And unfortunately, what's happening is there is a new oil auction that's occurring. The Ecuadorian government is planning to put up for bid 21 oil. By the two indigenous leaders from Ecuador are here, is that the Ecuadorian government is negotiating behind the backs of these indigenous groups without their consent. These groups have been adamantly opposed to oil for years and years and years. And in Ecuador, there's a very long legacy of contamination and rights abuses that have gone hand in hand with oil extraction in Ecuador. In the northern part of Ecuador's Amazon, you have the toxic legacy of Chevron. Back in the 60s, that company was the first to go into Ecuador. They used outdated technology and created one of the largest environmental disasters on the planet. Bill blocks. It's about 10 million acres, and these lands will go to foreign companies and give them the rights, in theory, to drill for oil. But because the state in Ecuador maintains the subsurface mineral rights. So a lot of the indigenous groups there, they have land title, but it's only from the ground up. So this new oil auction is occurring. It will occur up until May. There's companies here in Houston that right now, as we speak, are preparing bids. And that's why we're joined here with indigenous leaders who have come up here to confront the government.